Supreme Court decision that people have been waiting for quite some time, the Hobby Lobby decision. And of course, this is a test of boundaries. Where does Obama's imperial dictates, where do they begin? Where do the Congress's dictates begin? And where do religious freedoms end? Well, in this particular case, we had a narrow Supreme Court decision, 5-4, that ruled in favor of closely held corporations being able to have religious freedom, not to have those mandates mandated on them. Well, what about the rest of us? What about the rest of us who are being forced to buy policies that in many cases are far more than we need? For example, young men being forced to get maternity policies when they're single, that type of thing. Of course, this is a bill that was written by the insurance companies for the insurance companies' profits. It's been changed at will by Obama, and they tried to destroy this company, levying $1.3 million a day fines on them. I mean, that's even more than Hillary Clinton makes in a speech. You know, that's about 5 times what she makes in a speech. So that's a lot of money because she makes a lot of money with her speeches. But don't think that religious freedom is breaking out all over the place, because we've got the military banning Bibles while they're forcing soldiers in Bahrain to adhere to Ramadan rules. Also on the news, we've got calls in Congress for refugee status for Central American kids. And this is not just Obama and Democrats calling for this. This is people like John McCain, because this is an opportunity for them to exercise control. Understand that they're using children to take down the border, just like they use children to take down your individual rights to keep and bear arms, just like they use children for everything that they want to do. And of course, they create a crisis, but they say it's not a crisis, it's an opportunity. Pelosi was at the border this last Saturday in Texas. She was giving a speech. She said that the border breach is an opportunity to serve God's children. Well, then why all the animosity if they're God's children? And of course they are. Why is there all this animosity towards people who don't want to kill them through abortion? Do you see the inherent conflictions there? And of course, we've got a story up on InfoWars right now. FU, left-wingers want to burn down Hobby Lobby after a SCOTUS win. Certainly, they don't see children as a gift from God created in his image, deserving of respect and dignity. Well, where is Nancy Pelosi when children are being fondled by the TSA in airports? What about their respect and dignity? Well, that's a different case, isn't it? Because that's against American citizens. That's not against illegal aliens. And then we have not only Pelosi seeing this as an opportunity, we also have a new House Majority Leader, the guy who replaced Eric Cantor. He's talking about the border security. He says, let's get the border secure, then we can legalize everybody. Okay, that's an opportunity to him. He said, he calls it an opportunity. He says we have an opportunity to negotiate for the legalization of illegal immigrants. See, the problem with all this is, of course, they are deserving of respect, just as Americans should be deserving of respect. But Pelosi made an interesting comment when she said, I would just love to bring all of them home with me. Well, why doesn't she? Well, because there's practical limitations of how many she can care for. There are practical limitations as to how many children I can take care of, how many children I can adopt, how many children you can adopt. And of course, the government enforces those regulations if we start to go through adoption. We're not allowed to bring in 100 kids into our homes. We don't have homes large enough. We don't have incomes large enough for that. And we can't, as a society, bring in all of the children from Central and South America. Now, we've got special reports coming up. We've got a report coming up at the bottom of the hour with Alex Jones, and he's going to break down where all of this started. You know, it's Homeland Security that is cracking down on Americans inside the border and opening up the borders. Where did Homeland Security start? 9/11. Alex will be joining us at the bottom of the hour. He has a special report on Charlie Sheen engaging Obama about 9/11. And of course, that is the key to what's going on right now in this country. The institution that was created in the aftermath of 9/11, Homeland Security, is what is pushing the police state, the security state, the surveillance state within our borders, the harassment, the violation of our freedom and dignity while they stand down at the border. Same group at both the border and internally. This is all Homeland Security. Homeland Security is in charge of the borders as well as these agents that are harassing us. Very important report to see. And of course, there's a report up on Infowars.com. This should end the TSA, the hypocrisy of what's happening at the borders versus what they're doing at airports, bus stations, train stations, and on roadblocks. Now, we had a major Supreme Court decision come out today that people have been waiting for quite some time, and that is whether or not a couple of closely held businesses who have religious objections to the Obamacare mandates, whether or not they should be allowed to exercise those exemptions on religious conscience. And they tried to fine them $1.3 million per day. That was the Obama administration's response to that. While Obama carves out exceptions at will to his friends, delays things, cancels things, rewrites Obamacare at will, they were going to try to shut down Hobby Lobby with $1.3 million per day fines. Now, of course, it's Hobby Lobby and another small business. Hobby Lobby is not a small business, but it's closely held. It's a family business. It's not a publicly held corporation. It's a corporation just in the sense of its tax effects, essentially a small, closely held corporation. And a small Mennonite-owned cabinet maker called Conestoga Wood Specialties took this to the Supreme Court. You know, if we would all fight for our rights like these people did, we could stand these people down. I mean, they were either they put everything on the line, just like the founding fathers. They said they pledged their lives or honor their fortunes on establishing their rights. And I really admire them for taking this fight all the way to the Supreme Court, not caving in. If they'd lost, they would have lost their businesses, of course. Now, it's interesting, I think, to look at the response, the reaction to the Supreme Court decision from people like Justice Ginsburg, and also to look at what people are saying on Twitter, the hate, the profanity that's going on with Twitter, people calling for Hobby Lobby to be burned down. We have that article up at Infowars.com. But let's look at what the Supreme Court Justices Kagan and Ginsburg have said. Now, Kagan says, Congress has made a judgment, and Congress is given a statutory entitlement. Okay, so just obey it. And then Ginsburg says, this is a decision of startling breadth. Corporations could opt out of any law that is incompatible with their sincerely held religious beliefs. What is it about the Constitution that they don't get? When the Constitution says that when it comes to free speech and the free exercise of religion, it's not just about privately holding your beliefs in the closet. It's about exercising and acting on those beliefs freely. And what is it about the fact that the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law? If Congress makes a law abridging free speech, abridging your religious convictions, your exercise of your religious convictions, that law should be ignored by juries, by Supreme Courts, by everyone. It should be challenged. She goes on to say, Congress enacted the Religious Freedom Restoration Act to serve a far less radical purpose, and mindful of the havoc the court's judgment can introduce, I dissent. Yeah, you see, you don't come up with a Freedom of Restoration Act, which guts the First Amendment. See, it's not restoring anything. It's infringing on our rights when they do something like that. The First Amendment is supposed to be radical. The Second Amendment is supposed to be radical. The Fourth, the Fifth, the Sixth, they're all supposed to be radical. It's a radical idea that we have rights that we possess as human beings that the government can't take away. And those were put there specifically to protect individual rights. That's a radical idea. And we're not going to see it chipped away, infringed little by little. Now, what's it really going to mean? Well, Independent Women's Forum had some interesting observations about this. They pointed out that roughly 85% of group plans right now include contraceptive coverage, and that was the case before the mandate. So they're not going to go away for most people. They also said 99% of sexually active women in the U.S. have used contraception, so it's not going to go away either. You've got 85% of the plans that had it before the mandate, and if somebody thinks that that's an important benefit that they want, they can choose to work for those 85% of the companies. And then they also point out that there's a fallacy to the argument that if something is not mandatory, it will cease to exist. I remember when I grew up that we had these sayings, right? You don't hear them too much anymore. You're going to make a federal case out of that? There ought to be a law. We also had another saying that was, it's a free country, isn't it? Well, you know, we've been saying that there ought to be a law for everything, and we've been making a federal case out of everything for so long that I don't hear anybody saying it's a free country anymore. We inherently know that it's not a free country, and that's the reason why, because we've let them gut our individual rights, and we need to stop that. Now, just in case you think that religious freedom is breaking out all over, there's an article here from the Gateway Pundit. Military bans Bibles but forces soldiers to adhere to Ramadan rules, and that's in Bahrain. And this is a memo that was put out by Stars and Stripes. They said, U.S. personnel accustomed to drinking their coffee on the drive to work will have to put that habit on hold for about a month. It's one of the few lifestyle changes that Americans will have to make during the holy month of Ramadan. Meanwhile, the U.S. Air Force kicked Christian Gideon volunteers off of the base in March who were handing out free Bibles.
From the water table to our soils to the atmosphere itself, our world is becoming more and more toxic each and every day. But it's not just the air outside that's toxic. Indoor air has been shown to have 2 to 5 times higher concentrations of pollutants than even outdoor air. And most Americans spend 90% of their time inside using toxic chemicals within their homes. There are more than 42 million smokers in the United States. Well over 1,000 types of mold and mildew linked to numerous conditions. And don't forget the fact that 6 million Americans live with pets they're allergic to as well. When I began to research these statistics, it was clear to me it was time to start cleansing my lungs in order to combat the toxic environment that we cannot escape, but that we can fight back against. Made with organic and wild cultivated herbs and manufactured in the USA, the new InfoWars Life Lung Cleanse is here in a convenient spray bottle that can be brought with you throughout any toxic environment. Now available exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.